couple of weeks ago, you wouldn't have said that.
Exactly.
He looked like he'd been swimming at full time, Brian Fraser.
Very easily could have been, 8-0.
Oh, I hated Roarcelona. They sucked immensely.
For me, in this game, probably the worst performer on the pitch.
And I was usually banging on everyone's door. anyone.
It's going to be a huge weapon for them.
Well, they wanted to be in the league.
Special. Unbelievable! This, ladies and gentlemen, is football.
Hello and welcome to Total A-Leagues. I'm James Dodd with you this week in the absence of Vince Rugari alongside these two fine gentlemen, Danny McBreen, Tommy Orr. Gents, there is so much to get into this week. We've got a big blue review, we've got the Sydney derby coming up, there's transfer news galore, your Macca's moments as well. But before we do crack on, gents, there's some sad news overnight. That is obviously the sad news that Rado Vidosic has passed away after losing his battle against cancer. It's anybody connected with Australian football, men's, women's, the A-Leagues, it's a very sad time because he left such an indelible mark.
He did. I think it's tragic. I had no idea that this was happening in the background, but obviously condolences to Dario and the whole Vidosic family. But I think, Rado's kind of legacy in Australian football, I was fortunate to work with him at Brisbane for a number of years, and he was obsessed with the game and was a real kind of professor of the game and loved the attention to detail. But I think his legacy for me was more about him as a human being and the way he kind of dealt with a lot of the young players in the team. And I think everybody in Australian football has huge or fond memories of working with him, in men and women's football across Australia, and I think it's a huge loss, and condolences to the family and from everybody here at Total A-Leagues.
Yeah, I only really dealt with him just in this space as in media, and he just came across as one of the nicest guys you could ever come across, and
Absolutely.
You worked with him quite a lot, one of the best assistants you could say that you've had.
Absolutely. I think that, in terms of everybody who's worked with him, I think if you look at the number of young players that he worked with at Brisbane in that period, there was lots of Robbie Cruz, Michael Zullo, myself. I think there was a huge... He was like a father figure to all of us, and he taught us not only about football, but how to behave and respect the opponents and the game, really. So I think he was a wonderful man, and it's a tragic loss for sure.
Obviously played such a pivotal role in the one of the brains trust behind the Roarcelona as well. And I think, gents, it says a lot about somebody in life, not just in football, when you have someone that nobody has a bad word to say about. It speaks volumes for the kind of the person they were. And
the amount of people that have come out with posts across all sections, in Australia, with men's and women's football, in overseas as well, that all come out to express their heartfelt sadness at the news. So, look, as we said, condolences to the family, and hope you get through this time. Yeah,
absolutely. Condolences to anyone connected with the Vidosic family. Gents, before we move on to this weekend's games, should we have a look back at our favourite moments from the round that was, round 14? Macca, let's start off with you because you're itching to talk about Newcastle.
Oh, well, it seems to be a regular occurrence at the moment, doesn't it? But after a week where I copped it from the A-League socials about my squealing and excitement on goals, I didn't even get a chance to pick up the microphone, and Lockie Bayliss does that.
What a goal.
That is some finish, and that's only his second A-League goal. But I think that really sums up there, encapsulates the confidence that Millsy has given these guys to back yourself, go for it. He was going nowhere. There was Wellington shirts all around him, and he just went, you know what? It's 20 seconds into the game. I'm going to swing the leg at this one and watch it fly into the top corner.
And you look at the contenders for goals of the season so far this season. I think most of them are probably from the Jets players, to be honest. Eli Adams has a few in there as well. Obviously, Battleado. So there's something in the water there in Newcastle for sure.
Right. So we've got the Jets. Tommy, who are you going for?
For me, I couldn't go past Brodie Burkitt's hat-trick against Brisbane, the perfect hat-trick. I think 3 very different goals, but to be in your second ever professional game, 19 years old, and to do this, that first touch for his first goal, great team goal for the second one, and the header for the winner in the 91st minute. What a header that was, just guided it into the far top corner. Dream start for him, and what a way to kind of announce yourself to the A-League.
Oh, the finish, the header.
As his shirt's getting pulled as well, but he's going to have to do something in match 3 of his A-League career.
And he said after the game that he doesn't like to watch football because he gets in his own head. But I think I'm sure he watched those goals a few times. That's for sure.
So we'll come on to a bit more about Adelaide and Brodie Burkitt afterwards. My moment, the wee man, Ryan Fraser. What a way to make your impact in the Isuzu A-League. Coming off the bench in the 60th minute. Not just this goal to win it for them, but when he came on, I think he had 5 shots in the time he came onto the pitch. He completely changed the game into Wanderers' fortunes, because in the first half, Perth should have been out of sight in this game. They were much the better side. He comes on, completely changes the way that everybody in that stadium felt about the Wanderers. We'll come on to a bit more about them ahead of the Sydney derby as well, but he looked like he'd been swimming at full time, Brian Fraser. Talk about a game to sort of introduce yourself to Australian football as well.
Well, he mentioned climate change, didn't he? And I think he just meant from the cold weather in the UK to hot here. But when he said climate change, I thought he actually believes in it now. He's going, it's happening.
I'm saying, I think we saw his quality. I think that was just a snapshot of what he's capable of, and we saw the excitement that it generated from the Wanderers fans, and that's hopefully for them it's a sign of things to come.
Yeah, sign of things to come going into this weekend's Sydney derby as well. Let's talk about the Sydney derby, but from the perspective of both Sydney FC and obviously the team that walloped them 4-0 in the Big Blue, Melbourne Victory, because it's the biggest result for Melbourne Victory in a Big Blue in 20 years, 4-0 win. We've had Juan Mata say it's their best performance of the season. Arthur Dillis say it's the best performance under his charge. So, I mean, the first half and the second half, this was a domination from Melbourne.
It was a domination from the first minute. The first 10 minutes, I think both teams were a bit nervy. And if it wasn't for that man, Devonish Mears, it could have been 6-7.
Oh, yeah.
He had 3 really fantastic saves. But once the 10-minute mark went past, Santos has started to realise that he's one of the quickest players in the league. He was causing problems in behind. Dorigo and Mata getting on the ball. They obviously had decisions that went against them, which they didn't like, which seemed to spur them on as well. But they just looked like, as the game went on, the confidence started to grow. And then the Jelassic goal, I remember Mata going and picking up the ball deep. And I was like, in my head, I was thinking, he's just enjoying it now. And he bounced it a couple of times, and they bounced it 14 passes. And then Jelassic smashed it in the top corner. And you're thinking, this is a team who is out there enjoying it with their teammates. It's like mates out in the park. They were giving the ball, move again, bounce. So there was 14 passes into this. Jason Davidson was up like a midfielder. Ball comes in. Look at this little layoff. That's just quality. And again, talk about goal of the season contenders. They were humming and they were on fire. And when Lockie Jackson scores a goal, you know they're having fun.
How good was he in this game, by the way?
Was.
Him and Davidson, I think, on that left side defensively were both immense. But I think you just touched on it, but it's 100% true. Victory controlled every single phase of that game. I thought defensively they were so aggressive. They gave Sydney FC absolutely no time on the ball. They couldn't breathe. And with the ball, you could see the intent, the forward runs. Juan Mata was involved in absolutely everything. The timing of the passes. They were getting in behind our will. And it very, very easily could have been, 8-0, 7-0. I think that was honestly a realistic scoreline. So I think Sydney FC can count themselves lucky that it was only the scoreline that it was.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Juan Mata El Mago, 3 assists for the Spanish genius in that game. This is him speaking to Michael Zapponi after the full-time whistle.
Well, I thought it was probably our most complete performance this season, and of course, if you manage to do it against Sydney FC in the Big Blue, it's something special. So really proud today, really happy. I thought we played good in the first half, and I was thinking we are not going to reward ourselves with a goal and something can happen in the second half for them. But I thought we started the second half really good again, and overall a very good performance.
Juan Mata there, speaking to Zappers after the game. Gents, we've spoken a lot about Juan Mata this season. He's really starting to find his groove now. Yes, there are the problems of Western Sydney Wanderers last year and the fact that he just wasn't playing games. They obviously didn't trust him, they didn't fit the system, whatever it may be. But are we now seeing the benefit of having somebody of his calibre in the league, but also actually just trusting them and trusting him to know that, yes, his body might not be able to get up and down the pitch like it was 10 years ago, but the brain is still as sharp and as good as it ever was. And when you give trust to a player like that, this is what you get.
Well, you can talk about he can't get around as much as he used to, but by all accounts, his GPS numbers are up there with some of the top in the club. So the fact that you can't say he's not getting around, but you can have the best player in the world, but if you don't have the guys around him who complement that. Now, Dorigo coming in there, and Denny Jonro had been very good since he's come back in as well. Dorigo, for me, does all the grunt work and all the running for him and allows him, Mata, just to sit into those pockets, give me the ball. When he's enjoying it, he'll go out of his areas and go and get it and but he sits in that certain area. He's got pace either side of him and in front of him where he can throw balls forward. So not only is he in the position to do his stuff, but everyone around him is really complementing that, and they are a really good unit.
And I think last year we saw Melbourne Victory. The one criticism you could say about them was that they struggled to break that low block, when teams sit back and defend deep against them. Whereas with Juan Mata, he gives them that tool where he can make incisive passes. He's very comfortable in the tight spaces, link up with teammates, and exactly what you said, the complementing each other and the kind of different attributes they got in that front third, they're looking really, really good at the moment.
A team, gents, that probably could use someone of Juan Mata's creativity at the moment, Sydney FC. A bad day for them at Amy Park. It's not the first time at Amy Park we've seen a Sydney FC side struggle this season. It's a genuinely obvious question. What are Sydney FC this season? because I came away from that game thinking, well, they're a vastly different side in even the way they're set up and the way they're trying to play from last year. Ufuk Talay as a head coach can't have been on the sidelines thinking, I can see what we're trying to do this year. In fact, he said afterwards, we'll hear from him in a second, that they just couldn't do the basics of the weekend. How worrying is that if you're a Sydney FC fan?
I think, it doesn't. Don't have to play very great football every game. Every team has their off day, and they had an off day this game. But the thing that was alarming about this game was the lack of intensity about their game. You have to be up for the fight. You have to be competing in physical duels and all these types of things to win a game of football. And against Melbourne Victory, they just weren't. They had the lion's share of possession, but then I saw there was 3 or 4 times Ryan Grant got the ball. He's going forward. There's nobody making a forward run. There's no midfielders giving him any options, so he comes back, recycles the ball. All of a sudden, you're on the back foot, you're under pressure. And I just feel like across the board, there was just absolutely no energy. They were a team that was basically void of ideas with the ball. And I think that when you go into a game like that against Melbourne Victory, like that, you're playing with fire. And if they do that again against Western Sydney, I think it's going to be a long day for them again.
Yeah, let's hear from the Sky Blues boss, shall we? Spoke after the full-time whistle at Amy Park on what was a bad day for Sydney FC.
Today I think we struggled with the basic fundamentals of the game, is controlling the ball and passing the ball, which definitely let us down. The decision making let us down, and I think the desire to actually win your 1v1 battles, we didn't have it there, and we conceded 2 very good goals. The first one was a great goal. I think Jelicić's goal was a great goal as well, and overall just a little bit lacklustre in the front third where we didn't create enough to score a goal.
I mean, that's pretty damning, isn't it? If you're coming after the game, not only that, he said in his post-match press conference as well, they couldn't do the fundamentals, they couldn't control the ball, they couldn't pass the ball. This is supposed to be a team that's had 3 bites at the cherry now to take top spot.
Yeah.
And they haven't done it.
The kryptonite spot. No one wants that top spot, do they? Every team that's had a chance to go top has failed, and every time Auckland look like they can go away, they throw it points away as well. But he also mentioned there that they didn't create anything in the front third. You go back and look at their last 5 games. 4 of them, they've been scoreless. Yeah. That stretches back to 5 in 8. I think it's 5 in 8 games where they have been kept scoreless. Sydney FC, we're used to them being the team that they are creators, they are doing. Something's not happening right. And now you can sit there and say, well, they've got a whole plethora of players. I'm going to have to put the glasses on so I can read them. But Cariccio, Alex Grant now out, Wallati, Torre, Ule, Tisserand, we're hearing he's got a stress fracture in his foot, which begs a question to me is, why wouldn't he have a rest and then when he's right, get him back so he's full, rather than trying to limp him through? It does seems counterintuitive, because if you've got a stress fracture, 45 minutes and 1 kick is still going to impact.
And what version of that player are you going to get?
Correct.
Yeah, so I completely agree with you. I think some of the comments that Uffy made after the game as well, he was saying that the shirt's heavy and they're playing a lot of younger players so they can sell them on. But if I look at this game, you look at the experienced players, the likes of Campazano, they're the ones that need to carry the burden and take ownership of that situation and guide the young players through these kind of big games. He was probably, for me, in this game, probably the worst performer on the pitch. So when your senior players are going missing, I think the younger players sometimes cop a lot of the blame at Sydney FC. But for me, it's the senior players that need to do more. And I think, aside from Ryan Grant, who's been quite good, if Devon Ishmeers didn't have the game he did on the weekend, it would have been 7 or 8-0.
Well, from a player's perspective, lads, like if you've got Marcel Tisserand, we watched a clip earlier, didn't we, of the first goal and how you could see he was cooked straight away. So whatever issue he's got, Uffy said that it's his decision to play. He wants to play through it. But if you're getting, it must be so disruptive, not just from a team, but from a defensive unit perspective as well, that he's having to come off in the 54th minute when Alex Grant has already gone off with concussion, which means he's probably not going to be playing this weekend. Yeah. That cannot be sustainable.
But how many times, Tommy, in your career did you go, I'm right to play, and the physio or doctor would say, you're not playing, you need to get this right. We all would have done it, especially back in our day. You were just like, no, it's a bit of a niggle on that. Like, you need to have 2 weeks off to get it right. We can't afford to have you limping through the season.
It's the coach's decision who plays.
Correct.
And if you're going to get an injured version of Tisserand, then he probably shouldn't play. That's just the bottom line.
Yeah, I agree.
But the crazy thing is, Sydney FC could go top of the table this weekend if they beat Western Sydney Wanderers in the derby, if results go their way, or they could be outside the top 6. Yeah. So, I mean, how do we approach this Sydney derby from a neutral's perspective? Do you make them still as favourites? Are they still the better side going into this game?
I think we spoke about it before the Big Blue last week, and we agreed that Melbourne Victory, despite their table position, was the favourite going into that game, just given the momentum. And I think it's the same this weekend. I think Western Sydney Wanderers, for me, is favourites to beat Sydney FC. If Sydney FC plays anything like what they played last weekend, I think Western Sydney are going to have a great day at the office.
A couple of weeks ago, you wouldn't have said that.
Exactly.
But even though that we're hearing that Joe Lolly might be back, he hasn't played for a month.
Exactly.
So he's not going to be completely match fit, whether he gets a start or he comes off the bench. Yes, he can change the game. I'm with you. I think there's this little bit of, Ryan Fraser has brought a little bit of energy, spark, and I think West Sydney will do this.
Yeah.
It just seems so... Like we said, with those figures in the last 5 to 8 weeks for Sydney FC, they seem so flat, so devoid of confidence and ideas going forward that, I worry for Sydney FC and Uffy at the moment that they're gonna slide. Just continue to just go like that.
And like he said, we saw with Joe Lolly the last time he had a hamstring injury, they brought him back a bit too early, and he had a recurrence of the same injury. There's only so much you can expect of him. Yes, he's an amazing player, but there's only so much that you can ask of him when in coming back. Somebody that kind of fits into the same mould, Ryan Fraser. Now, we mentioned him at the top of the show. Just outstanding at the weekend. I mean, the wee man, as he was known, Tommy, he completely changed the complexity of this game. He changed the mood around the stadium. I mean, he nearly scored an absolute worldie before he actually did score the goal from the resultant corner. So just how much of a difference do you think him being in at the club has made for the Wanderers in general? Yes, they've had Gary Van Egmond come in, and that's kind of bucked a few ideas up, if you like it. We've got a few people back on side that maybe are out of favour on the stats. But just how much of a difference do you think he has made and his presence has made?
Well, I think he was absolutely the catalyst for the last 30 minutes changing for them, because I think the first 60 minutes of this game was much of the same of what we've seen in recent weeks. And I think the thing that he does is he injects so much enthusiasm and positivity. Every time he gets the ball, he wants to take a player on. He tries to make something happen. And I think that's been the missing thing for the Wanderers in the last few months is, it's a lot of people maybe not taking risks, trying to keep possession. It's all very slow. Whereas he has that change of pace, that spark, and we saw, on the left side, him coming onto his right foot. He can shoot, he can cross. And I think once they figure out how to use him and to give him the ball as many times as possible, he's going to be a huge weapon for them. And I can't wait to watch him play against Sydney FC this week.
Well, he had more shots than anyone on the park, and he was only on for 25 whatever minutes. He hit the post. He was putting balls into the box. He got one saved in the top corner, and he ended up getting the winner. The irony is that he was the last signing under Stadge, and Stadge never got to actually use him. Stadge must have been sitting there going, cheers. I knew he was going to do this, but obviously we've got to move on. But I think he's going to have a big impact for Western Sydney and their fortunes going forward, because that energy and infectiousness starts to rub off. And I actually thought in that last 30 minutes there was a lot more combination, like movement in wide areas with Western Sydney than we've seen in the past weeks, where they'd get it to someone out wide and they'd be totally isolated and they'd be like, well, what are you going to do with it now? Oh, well, we'll turn back out. Where there would seem to be more bodies around the ball, particularly on his side, because people are like, well, get in there because he's going to do something.
That's
right. He'll find you.
And I think one interesting thing about Western Sydney's game last weekend was that Ibasuki wasn't in the squad. Because I think that once they get used to playing with Fraser and they can see how good his delivery is, having someone like Ibasuki, at the very least, to bring off the bench for the last 10-15 minutes if you need a goal is going to be a huge weapon for them, because his delivery is absolutely outstanding.
Let's hear from Ryan Fraser, shall we? He spoke to Daniel Garb after what was a baptism of fire for him at Combank Stadium at the weekend.
This league is so, competition-wise, it's so tight. So I think if we can win next week against Sydney, it just shoots us right up there. So, yeah, it means a lot.
It's great to have you here. What were you thinking, though, when you walked onto the pitch for the warm-up and it was around 35 degrees and no one you could breathe?
I'm the only Scottish person that tans by the looks of it. Honestly, it's so hot here, but luckily enough, the lads are good at keeping the ball and didn't have to run too much. But I need an ice bath now for sure.
Looked like he'd been swimming, didn't he, Ryan Fraser? I think they did. Bless him, he looked like he'd aged about 10 years playing in that heat as well. Gary Van Egmond said something very interesting after the game. When they took Brandon Borello off, he put Božidar Krajev up front. And he said he felt it was the conditions that were suited to having a larger presence, somebody who could basically hold the ball up. Now, if he hasn't included Ibasuki or Aluko on the matchday squad, I just wonder whether or not Božidar Krajev might be an option to start this game through the middle, because Costa's been playing out wide on the right. Brandon Borello, for as good a player as we know he is, I don't think he's had a particularly great season for the Wanderers. Not that anybody really has stood above. I mean, would that be an option, do you think, for Gary Van Egmond in this game?
Well, I think Božidar Krajev's a wonderval player. I'd like to see him in that 10 position that mysteriously doesn't exist at Western Sydney Wanderers. But I've got to be honest too, I'm with Tommy. You've got potentially one of the best crosses, well, probably going to be one of the best crosses in the league, and you've got a 6'5" guy in your squad who we know is good in the box. Why wouldn't you have both of them in the squad?
Yeah, and look at the likes of Auckland, how they use someone like Cosgrove. I think that's the blueprint of how they can use him. And I think that when you've got, Costa and Fraser potentially out wide, bringing the likes of Borello on, Crive in behind, you've kind of got all bases covered. And I think I completely agree. I think that will be where it ends up. Yeah.
Right, on the spot then, predictions. Mako, you first.
I'm going to go with Western Sydney in a tight one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 1-0.
I think 2-0 Western Sydney.
I think 2-2. I only say that because I think both teams will feel as though they can get at each other this weekend rather than being an outlying favourite. One team that will obviously be paying close attention to this game is a team that's flying high at the moment under Mark Milligan. That is the Newcastle Jets. An emphatic 4-1 win over Wellington Phoenix last time out, gents. There's been some comparisons with this side. Now, box office, I know you've had your problems with that tag, Daniel McBreen, but how do they rank in terms of joy to watch from teams that we've seen in the A-League in previous years, like Roarcelona, for example?
Yeah.
Are they up there? Are they edging
No, I hated Roarcelona. They sucked immensely. They're the worst team that ever graced the A-League. Obviously, I got to see them close up, so yes, but I didn't really want to sit back and go, God, you guys are great. But, yeah, they were obviously fantastic. The fact that I didn't like box office tricks, I think box office, you have to be entertaining and successful, okay? And this team is... Well, clearly they're sitting second in the league and they are entertaining. They've won 7 in their last 9 games. But in that 9, when we talked about the defensive frailties, in only one game, and that's Macarthur, where they conceded more than 1 goal. Yep. So they've sorted out the defensive areas, the distances, as Millsy likes to say, but they are super entertaining. And yes, there's been some great entertaining teams in the time, and we were talking about them in the green room before, and I can't remember any of them at the moment.
No, for me, that's they're probably second to Roarcelona at the moment. But there has been Sydney FC over the years has some good teams. Melbourne City a couple of seasons ago.
Melbourne Victory.
Melbourne Victory, of course.
Oh, Monty's Mariners. That's the one that I was trying to think of. But maybe
there's been a few, but for me, I think in terms of pure entertainment, I think this trumps it. Every game you think they're going to score 4 or 5 goals. They could have scored 8 goals in this game. They were absolutely dominant. They missed so many pretty wasteful.
It could have been 3 all at half time. That's why they're entertaining as well, because you don't know whether they are going to, if that defence is going to hold up.
But I agree with you. I think to be box office, there needs to be a substance to it, and they've got the substance. And I think you have to give Millsy a lot of credit because he's doing it with unproven players. You look at Roarcelona, there were Socceroos in that team. They had Thomas Broich, they had Berisha, they had some amazing talent. Whereas, I'm not saying there's not amazing talent in this Jets team, but they're unproven. They haven't proven to be amazing talent yet. So you have to give Millsy so much credit for not only giving him a chance, but for getting the best of what he's got.
Yeah, because I think if the season started and the Jets had more money, when he looked at that squad, he probably would have went, we need to go and get some players. Yep. They didn't have the money, so he was thrown in, he had to use this, and he said, right, there's a few youth players where he could have said, I'm not going to risk playing you, but he has, and he certainly is getting the maximum out of this squad. And like I keep saying, they are contenders now, I believe.
And I think he's so strong on his convictions, Millsy, because you look at the defensive issues they had, and instead of kind of maybe going to a more defensive style, he puts someone like Max Burgess, who's normally an attacking player, at number 6. He's doubling down on his conviction. So the messaging to the players could not be clearer. They're going into games not worried about the repercussions of making a mistake. They're just, it's a very empowering kind of message that he's sending. It's like, this is what we do, and if we do it well, no one can stop us. And at the moment, no one can.
He is riding that white steed, isn't he, Mark Milligan? So how far can the Jets go? Mark Milligan was asked that question after the win over Wellington.
And what is the ceiling for this team?
I don't know. I've said it a few times. We don't want to put that kind of restriction on this group because there are so many young boys. The experienced ones are leading by example, and I think it'd be a little bit unjust of me to sort of say where this group can go, because if we start to put limits on that, then maybe they become content.
Gents, they've got a young coach, this Jets side in Mark Milligan, someone who's been given his chance to cut his teeth, and he's doing a fantastic job there. How important is that for this young side at Newcastle, that they've actually got someone that probably most of them would have grown up watching in the Socceroos, supporting in the Socceroos, or maybe even one of their favourite players in the Socceroos? Like, yes, Rob Stanton did a good job last year in laying some of the foundations for this side, but they've gone to a completely different level under Millsy. Is some of that because they've got maybe a coach in there that they can relate to? Some of these younger boys, he's maybe bringing a different philosophy and way of dealing with younger players that's helping them?
Well, I think Millsy has a certain sense of gravitas because of his exploits with the Socceroos, no doubt. But when you look at you talk to Millsy, obviously Ange has been a part as well, and I think he speaks to Ange. So this philosophy of this is the way we play and we stick by it. When he was under Carl, Adelaide, they were all guns blazing going forward, and they were entertaining as well because of the same sort of things. But he's not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater to go, we had a bad result, we got beat 5-4 on Christmas Eve, it's all gone to pot, let's change it up. It's about tweaking the way you want to play, and that his consistent messaging has never wavered with them. We don't know what goes on behind closed door, but especially outward to all of us, that has never changed. It has been consistent. This is the way we're going to play. I'm backing you guys. You guys are good players. Go and show me what you can do. But he's also, with this squad that we say they're all, most of them are unproven, you look across now, especially in those attacking positions, and you go, well, there's an extra player for that position. There's another player for that position. Even in the fullbacks and the centre backs now, there's extra players all over the park. So they're like, well, I'm confident to go and play, but I need to play well because someone else is going to come and take my spot.
100% agree. And I think that the other thing he's doing that he's doing really well is that you see in his demeanour in the post-game presser just then how relaxed he is. That's how he carries himself with the team. I think he's the one thing you can see on the field that his learnings from Ange and how he's been influenced by that. But Ange is the kind of guy that you're not really going to go up and have a chat to him as a player. Whereas with Millsy, he's just himself. And I think a lot of coaches fall into the trap of copying other coaches and not being them or their authentic version of themselves. Whereas he is just himself. And I think he's always been approachable. He is approachable to them. And I think for the young team, that goes a long way as well.
I think it's interesting, actually, that if you look at some of the players that he's definitely improved this year, whilst the Jets have got better as the season's gone on in terms of working out their defensive structures and being a bit more resilient at the back, that's seemingly helped James Delianov untold, because maybe at the start of the season when he joined from Adelaide, people were like, is he going to be a standout number one? Is he going to establish himself as one of the better keepers in the league? I mean, he's been brilliant for Newcastle over the last 4, 5, 6, 7 games.
Well, let's go back about 9 games and say that he had a bad game against MacArthur. And that's the game they lost 5-4. And he'll put his hand up and say that. He palmed a couple of things, probably 2 or 3 of the goals you could say. Outside of that, it's like he's flicked a switch, and these little silly errors that were coming are no longer happening. He's strong. His punches when he comes for crosses are there. His shot stopping has been immense, and it's like they sort of sat down and just said, hey, the same thing, just relax, man. Don't stretch things you don't need to. Let's get little bits of positioning right. And he's just grown in stature as well.
You have to give Jess Van Straten a lot of credit for that. And I think, that in the background, the work he's doing as well. And, like what you just said, when he did have a bad game, not replacing him, I think that they said, this position's yours, you make it your own, and he's done that.
Yeah, definitely calm. Let's move on, shall we? Because something quite rare happened in round 14 of the Isuzu A-League. It's football's equivalent of the 4-leaf clover, the perfect hat-trick. Brodie Burkitt for Adelaide United, coming off the bench at half-time, might I add, in just his second Isuzu A-League game. 24 minutes he's played in his professional career. He does this.
Yeah, unbelievable. I think, that we spoke about it at the start, but that first touch for that first goal was absolutely awesome. And then this goal as well, I think that the run to cut back for De Cooley to lay it off to him was very intelligent as well. And then we spoke about the quality for the header for the third one. But yeah, what a way to announce yourself in the league. And, he looks like a character as well, the way he celebrated him with his haircut. And I think it's great. And then, a lot of competition for places now in Adelaide in the front third with Jovanovic back as well.
But it's just his little movement as well, the sharpness of his movement, his anticipation of where the ball's going to go, that quick reactions to things, in being proactive, not reacting.
That's right.
Can't wait to see him get even better.
Yeah. Well, big question then, Ayrton Andreoli, does he start this weekend? Jovanovic is obviously back in the fold now after being away on international duty. Do you throw him back in? Can you leave him out?
The simple answer is yes. You said he's played, how many? 24 minutes before this game, or all up?
Before.
Yeah. Young players, this is where you need to put a little bit of reins on him. Yeah, you want him to, go and do that, but it's like, okay, don't get ahead of yourself. He's got to be built into this team, and to then just go, right, you're now a starter. I think would probably be a little bit too soon, because Ayrton did say about trying to bring the right time to bring him in, and then to just throw him in could be maybe too much at the deep end, and you don't want to do that to a young player.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, having someone like Jovanovic, who started this season fantastically and has been one of their standout players as well, I think they've got a luxury of options at the moment. Yeah. So either way, I think they're in good hands.
Let's hear from Ayrton Andreoli, shall we? Somebody who knows a thing or two about youth development in South Australia. He spoke after that impressive win against Brisbane.
Hi, guys. Yeah, thank you. It was It was a fantastic win, but regarding Brody, it's one of those things, I said this before, I knew this kid, I've got a bit of a history with him going, maybe one day I can tell the story, but he's got something that you can't teach anyone. He's just got something you cannot teach. He represents a desire to win, a desire to succeed, the most humble and happy-go-lucky kid that you ever have in the team change room. So, look, I'm delighted for him. I had expectations. I thought, can he deliver this level? Well, that's your answer today.
I mean, pretty high praise there from Ayrton Andrelli, lads. I mean, he's got something you can't teach. It speaks volumes of his character, if anything else.
Well, and I was about to say, I think that was the takeaway from that interview was his character. And, you know, with these young players, I think sometimes when they burst onto the scene, it can be a case of, as you just touched on before, they kind of get caught up in it and maybe get distracted and stop doing what got them to that position in the first place. But, you know, if he's that as humble as the manager says, then he's got in good hands. And we've seen Adelaide's conveyor belt of players they keep producing.
Pretty good list.
That's right. And this looks like maybe another one.
Don't remember anybody saying that about you when you played through Tommy Hill.
Cheers.
So obviously Adelaide have had such a fantastic record of not only just bringing these players through, lads, but selling them. On the topic of transfers, the eToro transfer update this week, there's quite a few players that we're going to start with in particular. Someone who's had that, who's come through at Brisbane Roar, made his name at Melbourne City now and got into the Socceroos, and that's Kai Trewin. He's left Melbourne City to move to New York City FC. Big fee, from what I understand. Obviously, it's a kind of a sister relationship between Melbourne City and New York City FC, so I don't know if the figures will be actually released, but this is a massive blow for Melbourne City, I think. They've brought in Ryan Teague-Macca, but is that going to be the fix to the problem of Kai Trewin's absence?
Well, let's have a look at Kai Trewin. He had 13 games this year and they conceded 8 goals. He had 2 games, well, he's missed 2 games. They've conceded 10. Yeah. At the 6th position, and I picked him, I'm going to put it right here and say he was going to be Player of the Year, and Tommy kiboshed me. But I think the position of a holding midfielder at times is you don't know what you've got until they're gone. And when you take them out and then you start going, oh my God, he did that work, he covered here, he got the ball and he played it forward and got us on the front foot. I think that's a massive loss, because I think he's one of the best players in the league. Yeah. And it's big shoes to fill. Ryan Teague obviously did almost a sort of similar role, but a little bit more going forward for Victory last year.
And I think another thing is his robustness. We've seen how many times where he just plays 90 minutes, 3 times a week, no problem. He'll change positions, he's versatile. Yeah. Whereas, when they've had injury crisis, he's one kind of dependable player you can rely on to play. Now, if you look at this Melbourne City squad now compared to 2 weeks ago, it's almost unrecognisable. So, they've still got so much quality. They've brought in a lot of quality, but, it's going to take these players time to understand what Vidi wants and to gel with their teammates. So, I think this could be a little bit of an awkward phase for Melbourne City, and if it takes them too long to get out of it, the season's going to get away from them.
Yeah. Well, Thomas Sorensen said this week on the download that there should be alarm bells really ringing for Melbourne City and the mentality, what he thought was a mentality issue in that game. Vidi said as much afterwards that they're too inconsistent, and when they're bad, they're really bad. Yeah. Harrison Delbridge coming in, he hasn't played a lot of football in the last, 6 months or so. Is that going to be... We know how good Harrison Delbridge was when he was with Melbourne City before. Is that going to be the kind of the fix to some of this slump that they're in at the moment?
Yeah, well, I think that they do have 2 good centre-halves in the likes of Ferreira and Supre, and the Supreans obviously had those injury clouds so far at the start of this season. So I think Delbridge is a great player. We've seen him in the A-League before. We know what he's about, but how long it's going to take him to get up to speed, because, teams are flying at the moment. And I think that when you're not match fit, it can feel like you're off the 8 ball, which, to be ruthless, I think Ryan Teague has looked off the 8 ball, and we know how good of a player he is, and I'm sure he'll get back to what he's capable of. But so far, he's not being able to fill the shoes of the people who were playing there before him. So I think this is, as I said, a little bit of a difficult period for Melbourne City.
One piece of news that kind of reached us on the day of this being recorded involved Auckland FC, actually, as part of our transfer update. Jesse Randall. Now, we know that we're in a period of time now, and as it is in January, where pre-contracts can be signed for players who are out of contract at the end of the season. There's a lot of very talented players in that Auckland side who only signed 2-year deals. They're, by virtue of that, coming to the end of those contracts being complete at the end of this season. Jesse Randall to Dundee United. It's where Zach Sapsford is. He's done very, very well there, probably knocking on the door of the Socceroos as well. It looks as though Dundee United have taken a look at some of the players being developed in this league and have said, he worked, let's try someone else. Jesse Randall to Dundee, is that going to be a bit of a hammer blow for them if that does get announced? And if you boys have been in this position, when you've got clubs circling and clubs flirting with you and kind of in your ear saying, get this done, you join at the end of the season, can that be a distraction for you and the teammates?
Tommy could probably answer that one. I was usually banging on everyone's door. anyone. Well, I think it's a distraction for anyone when there's someone in your ear saying, hey, come over here. You have a look. But consummate professionals cross the line and just go on, and you actually cross the line and go, I want to be good today, so more people are looking. But he's been exceptional for them this year. But the one thing that Auckland do have is depth. They've got a very strong squad depth-wise, but also the other thing they've done really well because of that depth is the recruitment that they've got. They've obviously got a very good recruitment philosophy in place. So if he was to go, I'd have no doubt that if one of the others didn't step into the breach, there'd be a quick-fire other signing coming in as well, because they've been so good at that over the past 18 months.
Yeah, I think if he was to leave immediately, I think he would be a bit of a blow because he adds such a different element for them in terms of his pace and his running in behind. But at the same time, I think if he's going to stick around to the end of the season and it's a pre-contract kind of situation, I think Steve Corica is very experienced. I think he'll manage that situation very well and make sure that he stays, professional and motivated.
Yeah, Auckland, listen, as you say, Macca, they've got experience. I mean, they've got the time with Hibs, they've got the time with Bournemouth. They all pull resources. They use things like transfer room. So if they're going to find someone, you'd back them to find the right person to replace him. The Mariners, it's been a bit of a difficult couple of weeks for the Mariners, but they've performed admirably on the pitch. Ollie Laval's come in as one of the players. He scored, 2 against Auckland, did very well. With him coming in, it meant someone had to leave, and that's Ryan Edmondson. He's already on his way. I think he's already back in the UK now. How do you kind of sum up his legacy at the Mariners, Macca? I mean, you're featured in this clip. Like, how does he leave as being a great for Mariners? Does he leave as being a fan favourite? Is he unfortunate to be the one that's having to make way?
Well, I was obviously enjoying him equalise there in the 93rd minute. Look, he's always going to go down in Mariners folklore now, isn't he? Because he scored 2 goals in the grand final. He turned it with almost the last kick of the game to save it. He won. It was part of the team that won the treble. Was he a success across the years? Probably not. I think he himself will probably say he didn't deliver his best, and he actually said after that grand final, he said, I finally scored a goal, I've come here to score goals. So he was obviously his own harsh critic, but he got man of the match. He won the grand final with them with the 2 finishes. He has to go down in the history of the Mariners as one that people look fondly at.
Completely agree. And I think that, you look at this is a team with not much experience in there. I think that his influence off the field was also tangible because everybody in the team, you could tell they got around him. They was very kind of friendly with the rest of the squad, and his leadership off the field was also very important for them, I think. Yeah,
a couple of quick hits as well. Keito Taniguchi, Japanese forward, he's got good pedigree as well, actually, in the J1. He's someone that they're kind of looking at trying to bring in. I think that's in the final stages, that deal. And MacArthur as well, Michael Pratazina from Sydney United. I understand that he's going to be heading to MacArthur, a talented young player who's got good reps in the NPL as well. So looking ahead to this weekend, gents, there's some big fixtures, none more so than the Sydney Derby. What catches the eye? And I'm going to throw it out there. Friday night, Wellington against Melbourne City at the Cake Tin. Yep. Massive game for Melbourne City, given what Vidi said after that game of the weekend. But for Wellington Phoenix, it's their 500th game in the A-League. Yeah. I mean, there's been some shockers, there's been some brilliant ones as well. Is there anything else there apart from the others that catches your eye, Macca?
Well, I've got 2 on my eye, and it's Newcastle versus Brisbane. How did Newcastle step up to this aggressive, strong, powerful Brisbane, who have now got D'Agostino up front as well? Will they control the game and be able to unlock their defence, because they are a lower defence? And the other one is the Mariners versus Victory.
Yeah.
Victory don't have very good times at Gosford, and that could be after such a big win. And the Mariners just seem to be competitive in every game, and somehow got point last week. That could be a little bit of a road bump for Victory.
And every time Victory takes a step forward, it feels like the next week they take one backwards. So I think them establishing some consistency will be important for them. But I think for me, the Sydney Derby, you can't go past it. It's the blockbuster event of the season for me, probably the greatest fixture I look forward to every year. And this one's looming, given the kind of lead-in from both teams, is going to be a cracker.
Will be, and it'd be very interesting as well. You touch on Newcastle there, how they cope in the heat against a Brisbane team that's probably going to want to slow things down and manage the game in a certain way. That'd be very interesting. Also, it's some are saying the real distance derby this weekend, or the new distance derby, which is Auckland travelling to Perth. Over 5,000 kilometres they're having to make in there, 2 different time zones, international travel, I dare say they'll be flying into Melbourne and then flying over to Perth. They'll be playing that game, I think it finishes at 1:45 in the morning,
in Auckland,
New Zealand time. I mean, that's going to take some adjustment.
Well, they wanted to be in the league.
Are you talking about Perth or?
No, it's true. And that was something that even coming from New South Wales states when you went to Perth and you were saying, oh, actually, when we finish the game, it's going to be 12:30 sometimes. They're obviously going to be going early to try and adjust.
Thursday. They're flying Thursday.
So they need, and then they'll try and adjust a little bit. But finishing a game at 2 a.m.
Yeah, it's tough.
I've done some late kickoffs when I was overseas, but nothing like that.
Gents, thanks for your company as ever. I will be filling in for Vince for the next 5 weeks, I think it is, whilst he's over there enjoying himself in Italy.
Tough life, Vince.
Thanks for being here, boys. Thank you at home for watching wherever you are watching this. Most importantly, enjoy the football, get out and watch the games if you can, and we'll see you next week here on Total Leagues.